Sex workers of Reddit, what was the saddest request you have ever received? This was a long time ago, but for an hour of his 90-minute session he just sat there and talked about his ex-wife who hated him. He also asked me if he should stop financially supporting his stepson because he wouldn't stop smoking weed in his house. Then read me some poetry he wrote, about his ex-wife. I never saw him again, but he emailed me more of his poetry afterwards. How was the poetry though? I'd give it a B+. Back when I worked in a dungeon, while there was no penetrative sex or anything that would be classified as sex, no exchange of fluids etc. still classified as sex work though. One client came in, he was married, all he wanted was for me to put on a wig that matched his wife's hair, wear a certain shade of Louboutin lipstick that he brought me, and his wife wore, and Dior perfume that he also brought, and his wife also wore. And then have me compliment him while he told me about his day. He was a client up until his divorce and remarriage. Edit, to answer a few PMs. No, it wasn't his wife's lipstick. It was a new lipstick in her brand and shade. And no, I didn't pay for it myself, as it's $120 lipstick. I have my own cosmetics. But for special requests, they had to bring me unopened cosmetics. For safety reasons. The same applies for the perfume. I go fragrance-free unless given a requested fragrance. Same rules with the perfume. For safety reasons it has to be an unopened package. They can take the products back after a session, but the next session they would have to bring me a new unopened package, so most let keep them for a future session. I once had someone who gave me $250 a week to just talk and smoke weed with him. No sex at all. He was very lonely because his wife passed and just wanted female company. One day he broke down during one of our hangouts saying how much he wished his wife was here. I just let him cry while I held him. Probably not the saddest, but it's the most recent one. Guy gave me $300 every 2 weeks just to text him and treat him nicely. No physical contact, no nudes or sexting. Literally just wanted good morning and good night texts, and someone to encourage him as far as work and his hobbies went. Dude, the encouragement part is actually huge. I can totally see that. Just someone saying I hope you had a good day and you worked hard. I am proud of you and you are doing good things. Try and be good tomorrow. In my younger days, I worked at a mail review. I had this woman of about 40-something who would come in fairly regularly. She asked me to a dinner date. I obliged her request, as she was quite attractive. About 5 minutes in, she started bawling, and when I asked what's the matter, she told me I was an exact replica of her son whom she lost to cancer. She proceeded to show me pictures, and TBH the resemblance was uncanny. We chatted over the years since, but in 2018 she passed of cancer. R.I.P. Fuck, round it out with a joke or something. That was upsetting. She told me the only difference is his dick was twice as long. This is a different kind of interaction of similar tone. And I had a phone sex client. It became clear after a few calls that I think his only interactions were online and involved giving money for attention back. I don't know if he had the means to keep this up or not. But he got very weird around the 5th call. Upset I wasn't online as much to talk. Wanted to talk all throughout the day, and when he couldn't afford it would try to haggle me lower in price. I told him that this amount isn't healthy for the mind and he should seek therapy. I was diagnosed with PTSD and had wonderful therapy that changed my life around. He got upset at me and blocked me. 2 days later, I wake up to text messages asking me to take him back. He sent photos of the front and back of all of his credit cards to prove he was serious. I felt so bad for him. That dude needs help. Not me, but a story told to me from a girl I know who used to be a sex worker. She had a regular client who'd come in every week, and just wanted to talk, be held or innocent things like that. Never wanted anything sexual. According to her this wasn't that unusual, as some guys felt guilty about going to a brothel or just wanted fetishes satisfied. But she said this dude was different. from which he pieced together he had an extremely unhappy home life. It seemed the only happiness he had in life was the hour he spent with this girl. She said one time he booked an appointment but never showed up, and they never heard from him again. I'm a guy who shoots porn, so technically a sex worker. I've got some requests of PH users who sent me some messages. One guy just wanted me to shoot a girl who would say hi, John. I changed the name, I love you John, I miss you John, and so on. I guess this guy has nobody who talks to him. I've got a lot of stories, but honestly, the amount of guys I've spoken to in private who just needed someone to talk to be kind to them, to feel a connection with. It's a lot. I try to portray a very cheerful and kind persona as a cam girl, so I think I attract guys that are more lonely than horny. I used to cam as a joy/denial dom, and I worked with a guy who was really into being humiliated and didn't seem to believe me for quite some time when I told him I was into dominance IRL, off the camera, too. I am not usually into the humiliation aspect but played along with him as he wasn't asking for anything too extreme, and it was hands down the hottest session I've ever had. I always insisted on aftercare after a session because I feel it's negligent not to offer it, and he opened up to me for a half hour about how much pressure is on him constantly and how much of a relief he finds this particular kink to be. He was from a strict Midwestern family with very strict notions of masculinity, and there was so much catharsis flowing out of him in that moment, like getting off with someone who was willing to let him be weak, had torn down a huge dam of some kind and it was all just running out. I'd heard a lot of similar stuff from clients, especially guys who were new at it, which I got a lot of. I am a non-threatening dom low, but he was on a whole other level of wildly self-aware and intelligent and emotionally in tune, and it felt so tragic that someone that insightful and intuitive and sensitive should have spent a lifetime feeling the need to tamp it down. He had a really healthy view of his kink and the baggage associated with it, and I wished him the best and still do, and I hope he's in a better place and can express himself and his feelings of weakness and vulnerability publicly now too. I think of him all the time, probably once a week. I wonder how he's doing and if he found himself a girl offline to give him what he needs, now that he knows they exist for real and not just in porn. Smile. I hope so. If we lived in the same state I'd have come and fucked him for free. Lol. I was the client with the sad request. I'm gay, just to set the stage. Though I'm much more comfortable in my skin and with my sexuality now, just check my username. Years ago I was a self-esteem mess. I was young, gay, hairy, fat, and felt as though no other gay man on earth would want me. I tried to get dates, only to have guy after guy ghost me when he realized I didn't look like an underwear model. Then, I met Troy online. He was an escort and very open about it. He was beautiful, kind, and instantly I wanted him. I hadn't had sex with another man in almost 3 years, so I was pretty desperate for some action. I negotiated the fee with Troy, booked him for the night, about 4 hours, and sent him my address. When he arrived, he was even more beautiful than his pictures. I wanted to fuck him right then and there. But, something happened when he took his clothes off. He was standing in my bedroom, naked and ready to party, so to speak, and something in me snapped. I realized that the only way I had to get a hot guy like that to have sex with me was to pay him. I sat down on my bed and started to cry. The body image issues. I was now even more self-conscious to get naked in front of Troy, being that he was practically Adonis in my eyes. The lack of a love life, the self-esteem, the depression, it all coalesced into a miasma of torment and pain. Troy, to his credit, didn't question my sudden change. Instead, he gently undressed me and then laid beside me in bed, his head on my chest and his leg resting on top of mine. For almost an hour, he told me about his life, asked about mine, and even sounded genuinely excited to hear about my master's thesis topic. Whether he meant it or was just a good actor, I'll never know. When his time was up, the time I pre-booked, he didn't leave. Instead, he asked if he could spend the night. We stayed cuddled up like that and talked until dawn. Before he finally did leave, he did give me a hand job. But, it didn't feel as though I paid for that, even though I did. This felt more like it was a friend making me feel good, not someone who was obligated. Troy, wherever you are, thank you for being so sweet. Former escort here. I didn't do it for long, had a few clients who were nice, a few who were weirdos, pretty standard stuff. One evening I am contacted by a guy for an evening dinner date, but wanted the whole evening. Nothing unusual there. I agree a price that means I'll stick around until breakfast, and he asks me to meet him at a restaurant I knew. When I meet him in person, I couldn't believe my eyes. This guy was gorgeous, and I mean paid model pretty. I couldn't understand why he contacted me. The man had 3 stunning women eyeing him up as soon as he entered the room. Still, he was nice and sweet, although clearly incredibly nervous, so we sat and drank and talked, ate our food and generally had a pleasant evening. He took a while to open up, so I did most of the small talk to start with, but he soon opened up, and seemed like a real, genuine nice guy. Still baffled as to why this guy needed to hire a sex worker, the meal came to an end and he started to close up again. I started to think he was a virgin who was super nervous. I pegged him for early 20s, so maybe he was embarrassed about never having had sex before. I called us a cab to take us back to his place. When we got through the door, he rushed to the kitchen and grabbed a bottle of booze, I forget what, and just started chugging. I took the bottle off him and tried to get him to relax, told him to take a breath, put on some music and to meet me in the bedroom. I stripped off for him and waited for him to come in. I figured if he was this nervous then undressing me would be tricky. Eventually he walked in, eyes turned to the floor. I sat him on the edge of the bed, unzipped his trousers and started performing oral sex on him. He wasn't hard, but had obviously been trying to get an erection once I left him alone. Perhaps he was semi-impotent? He started breathing heavily, so I thought he may be starting to relax. After a minute of this I looked up at him to say something, and realized he was breathing heavily because he was trying to hold back tears, which wasn't working because they were rolling down his cheeks. His face was screwed up in agony and his hands were white where he was gripping the bedsheets so hard, so I asked him what was wrong. He burst into tears and started sobbing uncontrollably. Turns out he was gay. He had tried coming out to his parents, and apparently his mom basically carried on like he hadn't said anything, but his dad just kept laughing, saying it was a phase, he would get over it. When he tried to convince his dad the feelings were real, his dad made him phone me. We sat and talked for hours, about he had never been able to tell anyone about his sexuality, and that his parents had been the first people he confided in. He hadn't got many friends because he was worried about being bullied, and he had always known he was gay, so he had never had a girlfriend. I just cuddled him while he talked, not saying a word. When I left in the morning he tried to give me money, but I left it on his counter after he got in the shower. I wanted to text him later, to see if he ever sorted things out with his parents, but at the time I felt like he might think I was weird because I wasn't his friend, I was a call girl. A few weeks later I saw his picture on the local news, and my blood ran cold because I knew the instant I saw it what had happened. There is only one reason you see a Facebook photo of someone on the local news. I heard from some friends in college that he had hung himself, because his dad basically disowned him. I feel sick every time I think about it. Perhaps things would have gone differently if I'd have stayed in touch. Not my story, but someone else's that somehow stuck with me. Owner of an escort service who shared a story of a guy who apparently was from a wealthy family, but as a child hardly ever saw his parents. He was raised by an au pair or nanny with beautiful long hair which he always combed for her as a kid. Into puberty he had got aroused from combing it, she noticed, and gave him his first sexual experience. Since then the man always requested girls with long hair and only wanted to comb it and then get a hand job. Kinda sad thinking about all the parental love he missed and trying to compensate like this. I'd get discounts but I sell foot pics, and I used to have this one customer who was the nicest guy ever. He was pretty young, only like a couple of years older than me. I am 20, and overall just super guilty about his kink. He would always pay me really well and was overly polite. He would pay me extra for my pedicures, and never was demanding about anything, which is super rare. We would have long conversations where I would try to convince him that liking feet was a mild kink and nothing to worry about. He never really got over the guilt though. He came from an extremely Catholic family, so he was super repressed. Overall nicest customer/guy I've ever met, would shower me in compliments, and our relationship honestly just felt like a friendship. Congratulations, you've reached the end. Tap on Reddit Piggy to subscribe to be blessed with 2 days of amazing luck, and also plenty of interesting videos from Village Reddit.